You cool cats and kittens. Welcome to Lecture 4. Today we're going to talk about Homer and the Bundrens, specifically looking at Greek mythology and the epic tradition in As I Lay Dying. Really, today is about highlighting the allusions that Faulkner uses. He's got a lot of allusions to mythology that can go over our head unless we train our eye to see them. But he especially is making quite a few allusions to Homer's The Odyssey. So hopefully you've read a section or two in your past. If you haven't, don't worry, we're going to give kind of a quick summary in this presentation today. So let's begin. So Faulkner is totally known for taking his titles from other classic works. So The Sound and the Fury comes from a work by William Shakespeare's Macbeth. The title of Absalom is a biblical reference to the story of King David and one of his sons. Similarly, Go Down Moses is the name of an old slave spiritual. And finally, As I Lay Dying takes its title from one of the oldest works in literature that's known to us today, and that's Homer's epic poem, The Odyssey. Look at Homer, he's still looking real fresh all these years later. So in the Odyssey, it tells us the story of the mythical Greek hero named Odysseus and his journey, or his odyssey, if you will, back home after the Battle of Troy. It's this epic journey, and it lasts a very long time, 10 years in all. And in a nutshell, Odysseus goes on a whole lot of wacky adventures. These adventures include things like an encounter with the Cyclops. There are some sirens that try to seduce him. There's a witch named Circe who turns all of his men into pigs. And there's even a trip to the underworld where he visits the Greek god of Hades. This trip to the underworld and this visit with the Greek god of Hades is where the name of this novel comes from. So in book 11 of the Odyssey, when Odysseus visits the underworld, he sees his mother there, as well as the fallen heroes from the Trojan War, including Agamemnon. But Agamemnon wasn't actually killed during the war. He was actually killed when he returned home, and the person who killed him was his wife. Her name is Clytemnestra, so stick with me here. It was her lover. So she was seeking revenge on Agamemnon because 10 years earlier, Agamemnon sacrificed their daughter to get good winds for their ships on their journey to Troy. Still tracking with me? Lots of drama here. So when we meet Agamemnon in the underworld in the Odyssey, he tells Odysseus, "As I lay dying, the woman with the dog's eyes would not close my eyes as I descended into Hades." Just a note, though, that this story doesn't even end there. Later, Agamemnon's son will come back to kill the murderer of his father. Clytemnestra will kill Agamemnon's lover herself. It's all very complicated and full of emotional turmoil and distress. So maybe you can see why Faulkner might have thought a connection with this family and the Bundrens made sense to him. Lots of drama. So the title can also be seen as connecting As I Lay Dying to some of the Greek epic traditions. We're going to talk about 3 today. The concept of the epic quest, the confluence of humans and animals, and finally, the idea of giving a voice to the dead. All 3 of these things are fairly prominent in As I Lay Dying. So let's first consider As I Lay Dying as an ironic version, or maybe even a parody of the classic quest or journey. In 1949, Joseph Campbell published The Hero with 1,000 Faces, in which he put forth the theory that the vast majority of human myths from across cultural and societal lines all share a common structure. He calls this the monomyth or the hero's journey. So Campbell believed that there were a number of steps and stages on this journey, and the vast majority of myths followed this pattern. This pattern, he said, could be applied to almost everything, including religious stories and non-religious myths. As I Lay Dying is a story about a journey or a quest, but unlike the myths that Campbell was talking about, this quest is ultimately meaningless. In the Odyssey, the quest that is undertaken by Odysseus is very meaningful. He needs to get home and he struggles to do so. And eventually he achieves his goal. In As I Lay Dying, there is a constant sense that what the Bundrens are doing is wrong or improper. This quest causes destruction, not growth, and few of the heroes are particularly selfless. As such, with As I Lay Dying, you could make a very interesting case that Faulkner tries to take the conventions of myths and quests and try to turn them completely on their head. This, by the way, would be a very modernist or existential way to approach something from the past. So now we're connecting some of our other lectures. Heroes are not selfless. There you go, last point. I'll wait a second while you get that down. Okay, bye. Another thing that Faulkner does frequently is make comparisons of humans to animals. Throughout Greek mythology, including the Odyssey, there are examples of humans and non-humans being compared and sharing some kind of kinship or connection. Greek gods such as Zeus frequently transform into animals when they appear to humans. In the Odyssey itself, there are two examples of this. The Cyclops, who tends to a flock of sheep and seems to feel a very strong connection with them, and then Circe, who transforms men into pigs. There are obvious examples in this text as well. For example, Vardaman. He equates his mother with a fish that he caught at the beginning of the novel, and then Darl is frequently repeating that Jules' mother is a horse. But a close look at the novel reveals even more of this. We could go on with all of the examples for a while, so we're just going to point towards one specific moment that I think is particularly interesting. It comes near the end of Darl's second chapter, where he describes Jules feeding his horse, one of those scenes where he narrates an event that he's not present for. In the scene he describes, when Jules can almost touch him, the horse stands on its hind legs and slashes maze of hooves as by an illusion of wings. Among them, beneath the upreared chest, he moves with the flashing limberness of a snake. For an instant, before the jerk comes into his arms, he sees his whole body, earth-free, horizontal, whipping snake limber until he finds the horse's nostrils and touches earth again. Now, hopefully you've picked up on the fact that Jules is frequently equated with and compared with his horse, that he has a strong connection to his horse. Here, the connection to the horse actually does take on mythical qualities, as Faulkner describes the horse as having an illusion of wings, an allusion to the winged horse Pegasus in Greek mythology. Horses can be seen as symbolizing strength, loyalty, and bravery. To add wings to this symbol adds an additional connotation of flight and the ability to transcend what is expected. For Jules, of course, he takes this symbol and treats it very poorly. In the segment I chose, he kicks the horse and beats it and insults it. His interactions with it are described again as snake-like. And the snake, in contrast to the horse, is an animal sometimes connected with the idea of vengefulness, anger, sneakiness. Perhaps we can see Jules as being in some sort of inner conflict here between the person he could be, represented by the horse, and the person he currently is, represented by the snake. Continue to pay attention to the different ways that characters are compared to and equated with animals and other non-human things throughout the novel. Is that snake happy or about to bite? I think it's a happy snake. All right, finally, a last connection to the epic tradition is the idea of giving a voice to the dead. Remember that the title of the book itself came from the words of a dead man in the underworld. Throughout mythological works and epics from the past, we can see examples of characters visiting the afterlife in whatever form it exists. Look at the Odyssey and consider Dante's famous Inferno, in which the protagonist ventures into the 9 circles of hell. Faulkner continues this tradition in As I Lay Dying in the next section of the novel that you'll read for next week. He takes a break from the main plot of the novel to include a 3-chapter intermission, so to speak, anchored by the lone chapter within the book that Addie narrates. There is no earthly explanation for this, no sense of when she's narrating. Is this from within the coffin? Is this before she died? We don't know. Faulkner is drawing upon this epic tradition of giving a voice to the dead. Addie's chapter is a confession of sorts, one where she sheds light upon a great number of mysteries that have developed in the first section of the novel. But as you read, think about why Faulkner chose to give her this voice and why now when she's dead rather than before she dies. All right, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. This concludes our lectures for the week, and I will look forward to connecting with you later. Bye.